So for about the fourth or fifth time in my life, depending on how you count it, I'm writing a 20-minute prog rock song. It's not a Tom Slatter song, because Tom Slatter songs were a bit less heavy than this. This is a higher wire act song, which is my new band, me and Mike Orvis on drums. This is more metal than a lot of my stuff. It's the heaviest thing I've probably recorded properly. Not that it's recorded yet. I have a first draft demo. That's what I've got so far, not the whole song. A couple of months ago, I made a commitment online. I said, I'm going to write a 20-minute long prog rock song in one weekend. And then it transpired I couldn't find a weekend where I had the whole weekend, so I ended up writing the whole first draft in one day on a Sunday. I mean, I say that as soon as I decided and made the commitment, my brain started working, so ideas started turning up. So it's not as if I had literally no idea when I pressed record. I knew a little bit of what I was going to do. But that's how songwriting always works. There's always ideas percolating, for me anyway. What I thought I would do with this video is show you what I've got so far in this first draft and talk a little bit about how I went about composing this. The main method, the thing I did on that Sunday, was set up Reaper with guide guitar, guide vocal mic and click track, and I recorded all the ideas I could think of, and then I programmed some draft sort of drums, MIDI drums to go along with it, and then I've sort of filled out some of the space from there. Remember, everything you hear in this is first draft. It's not perfect recording. There will be like wrong notes, slightly out of tune guitars and stuff, so bear with me. It's not the finished article yet. Later on I added some drums, some bass, so they come in now. So we've got this idea. It's a B minor chord, a flat minor chord, a G chord, and that worked quite well. So I thought, well, obviously it already moves down chromatically, so let's do the same thing again. So now we've moved down a minor third below where we were. And after we've done that a couple of times, we move down again. This is a thing I do a lot in my songwriting, by the way, moving a whole section, little section, by a chromatic third, major third or minor third. And then it felt like it needed to get louder and bigger and more metal. I didn't quite know where, but I ended up basically taking that idea, and then I made a mistake, which is I was playing on this cheap 7-string guitar that I've got, and I am not used to playing with my 7-string guitar. So I ended up thinking, oh, okay, I'll do that same idea again. It's in B, but I picked the wrong string, ended up playing in F sharp. But it worked, so I kept that. So the same sort of chord idea, but louder, with distorted guitars, but also in a different key accidentally. But moving down by thirds was the next thing I did. So like I say, my songwriting, I always end up using ideas that have been sitting around. This 4/4 riff has been around for a while, just sitting in the back of my head. It's quite chromatic again. It's all over the place in terms of keys, but it's proper metal. So we've got this idea. This is sort of the basis of one of the first choruses as well, but it just turns into a sort of verse chorus structure. There's a bit of a vocal here. There's not huge amounts of the vocal recorded, although I do know what the melodies are. But there's a bit of one here, so you will hear some of it. Lyrics are all a work in progress as well, obviously. Here's what that sounds like.
And if it struggles to be born, pull it out, don't be shy. And if it's sent to ache quite right, shut it up, we've heard this before. There are omens, there are signs, there are papers and peer reviews. Is this a tinderbox I see before me? I see it now.
The chorus has part of the same melody as that first guitar thing I recorded. So the very first guitar thing that I recorded, although it's not the start of the song, sounded like this. So we've got that la da 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 thing is what ended up in the actual chorus. Something like that. You're not going to hear much more than that because the draft vocal is terrible, but you get the idea. So by this point, I had what I thought was going to be the intro, but it turned out not to be, and then a verse, chorus, almost pop song structure after the intro. So far we were doing all right, it's working fine. I had a song idea that worked, but then the point is to do the big long thing. All right, so what are my options? Some big long prog rock songs achieve that length by having sort of lengthy jam sessions, maybe big long guitar solos or keyboard solos, and that sort of thing. I've never really written anything like that. I've got no interest in it. I'm not saying it's bad or anything, it just doesn't interest me. I'm much more interested in the songs that do sort of more songwriting stuff rather than the more psychedelic soundscapey stuff or big long solos. So what are your options if you're doing that? Well, what I chose to do was basically to do a medley, by which I mean this piece joins together things that in another world I could have chosen to make standalone pieces. Instead, I've joined them together in what I hope are interesting ways, which is something I've always enjoyed doing. So that idea that I showed you that is in F sharp, that comes back a few times as a way of basically it's what I do to signal, we're going to change soon. So you heard it, sort of big loud guitars. Here it's different rhythm, but it's the same chromatic third descending pattern. Down a third, down a third, down a third, again. Now if you're going down in minor thirds, it goes around in a cycle. After 4 you're back where you started, which is what this does. We've got this little riff in 5, which brings us to the end of this section, and then we go proper heavy. I've not actually done sort of proper heavy stuff, but I really do like extreme metal. There's not going to be any shouty, screamy vocals on this, but there is a bit of extreme metal stuff, and there's a bit with very silly. What did I work this out as being? Something like 23/8, I think. I might remember that wrong. I'm not going to bother counting it out now, but sounds like this. There will be vocal over this. I haven't recorded it. I know what it sounds like though. This has got a tuneful bit as well. Let's find the sort of the chorusy bit. It'll be where the keyboard start, about there. Another songwriting thing I quite like doing is interrupting sections. You can do smooth transitions, and sometimes that's what you need, but I quite like just an interruption. We're going along, we think we know what's happening. Oh no, here's something completely different, as a bit of a U-turn. So this next section, I was sitting there, right, first recordings, all that was happening was a click track and guitar. So we basically had something like this. The way I do a click track, by the way, for these things is I try my best to ignore the time signature. So traditionally what you would do is you would have a different sound on beat 1 of the bar, so you always know where beat 1 is. But I was coming up with new ideas, so I didn't know what time signature I was going to be in, so I've just set the click track to eighth notes and just raining here. That might pick up on the mic, we'll see. So I just set the click track to eighth notes and just record along to that. And if I'm changing time signature, it's not often that I'll be doing something that doesn't fit into 8 notes in some way, so it usually works. So what we've basically done here though is I've gone into triplets, so it's 3 against 2, and I've ended up doing something that's basically 12 tone. It's not atonal. One of my bugbears is people using atonal, the word atonal, wrong. Atonal means without a tonal centre, and this definitely has a tonal centre. But it also uses all 12 notes very close to each other. So is that atonal? I'd argue not. I'd argue it's definitely tonal, but it's also definitely pretty chromatic. Anyway, it's also pretty heavy. It goes something like this. From there we go to something that to me sounds a little bit opeth. I don't know, maybe not, but to me it does. And a bit of acoustic guitar as well. I did that later on. It wasn't in the original demo, but... And again, there is a vocal line that goes over here. I just haven't recorded it yet. Later on we change key and there's a bit of a lead, so let's find that. How do you end a big, long 20-minute prog song? Well, lots of them end with something that's big and loud, but not too fast, mid-tempo, often with something that you could sing along to, or at least la along to, sway along to or something. So that's what I've done. Goes something like this. Again, it's all first draft, remember, but something like this.
The fire is burning me, it's burning you, it's burning the whole world. We're bathing in these flames, we'll turn to ash.
I think that acoustic guitar might be out of tune. Sorry.
sky, this unreal town.
And obviously that bass is way too loud, but that's all right.
The horse and the rider come to run, come to flee.
Getting the words wrong as well.
The cruelest last century.
Nice pause and then into the big version of that.
The fire that's burning me, it's burning you, it's burning the whole world. We're bathing in these flames, will turn to ash.
I think this is good. I think this has got a good melody. I think that's going to work. That's enough for you. You get the idea. I had that last section, right? So to give the illusion of structure and to sort of try and persuade people that, no, this is something that was planned out and thought out, I put a version of that end melody at the beginning. So this is actually the intro now, although it's the last thing I recorded. And that's the first thing I showed you. A lot of this was about taking ideas like that were hanging around or that had occurred to me and then getting them into the right structure. And to do that, you've got to have an idea of the kind of structures that work. So I talked about having that sort of mid-paced sing-along thing at the end. I know that's a structural thing that would work. I also know having a sort of a verse, chorus near the beginning after the intro works in a big long piece like this. But then it was a case of thinking, okay, have we had enough contrast from the last section? That's what I'm always thinking about. Contrast in terms of key. So we've got ideas that are in, obviously I'm writing with my 7-string guitar. It's a chance to use the low B string. So there's a load of stuff that's in B or sort of in B early on. So can't keep on doing that, right? So we've got sections that are in E. The final section is in E. The middle bit that's quite heavy. There's that section near the end of the heavy bit that's really chromatic and is doing using all the notes, literally. But the bit just before that is sort of going between E minor, G minor. So again, there's change in key as well as changes in time and signature and instrumentation. At the moment, it might be in the draft a little too electric guitar-y. There might be bits where I need to take out some of the sort of heavy metal guitar, but it's there in the first draft anyway. And then taking the intro material, sticking it at the beginning is a good way of making the whole thing feel like it's structured and makes sense. It makes sense rather than being disjointed ideas one after the other. Where I've heard long prog songs that I think don't work, obviously I won't mention names, that would be crass and rude. Where I've heard things that don't work, it's where it sounds like you've just got essentially random sections, and like each section might be good on its own, but then you put them together and you can't really see as a listener where the logic is. Logic might be the wrong word, you know, music isn't hugely logical, but you know, if it doesn't make sense, if it could be the case that you could reorder sections in any order, then that's weird, right? There should be some sort of reasoning and logic as to why, even if it's just a case that you're building in intensity or falling and building again. What we've got in this is, you know, intro builds up, gets us to a point that's, you know, relatively high energy. Then we get the heavier section that's really high energy, all sorts of stuff going on. So we have to follow that with something that's more acoustic. That sort of slightly opathy bit that's more acoustic in the middle, and then we can build up again, and then another peak with the guitar solos taking us down into the tuneful outro. So you could think of contrast in terms of different keys and tonal centers you've got. You can think of contrast in terms of energy levels. You can also think of contrast in terms of, I guess, I'm not quite sure what the right words are, busy versus smooth. It's like you think about the percussion, you know, the drums might be all over the place, playing really busy, complicated stuff, and then you could contrast that with something that's just a straight beat, and you could easily nod your head to. That's another way of contrasting things. So I've done the thinking, right? I sort of know what the lyrics are. I haven't talked about that in this video. Maybe that's something in the future. I've done the thinking. I've got my first draft. The next step is I've sent it to Mike. Hopefully Mike's got the time to get some drums recorded. And once we've got those real drums recorded rather than the scratch drums that I've got on this video, then it's a case of building the other instruments on top of that and making final decisions about instrumentation and stuff. There we go. That's my current little project, or one of them, a mad, stupid 20-minute long prog song. I hope you enjoyed hearing me rabbit on about it, and I hope you enjoyed hearing some of the ideas that I've recorded.